In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how I install a Genius Weft, but this time I'm doing it a little bit differently. So I've already made a Genius Weft install video before, and then I read through all of your comments and questions on that video, and I realized that there was a few things that I needed to take a bit more of a deep dive into. So in this video, I'm going to break it down step by step and answer the questions that you guys have been asking the most. The most asked question that I got is, do you have to do a hidden row when it comes to Genius Weft hair extensions? And the simple answer is no, you don't have to do a hidden row. So what I'm going to show you today is how to install that Genius Weft, not doing a hidden row, so that if you're a beginner or a starter or you're starting out in those Genius Weft worlds, this is going to be a really clean cut and simple way to install those extensions. So make sure that you watch this video all the way through, because I'm going to show you the little details that can completely change the result of your install and give you confidence when working with Genius Weft. If you're new here, my name is Sam and I'm a hair extension specialist and educator based in Los Angeles, and on this channel I share real behind the chair education for stylists who want to improve their extension work, avoid damage and create better results for their clients. So before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell and follow me on Instagram. On Instagram I am xsamhair and on TikTok extensionist LA. I post a lot more tips and behind the scenes details on there, and also some quick education. If you want to see the tools that I use, I've got everything linked in my Amazon storefront, and I'm going to share a few coupon discount codes that I have for you guys that you can use when you're ordering your extension tools. So let's just get into it. Let's get into this Genius Weft install and answer your questions as I work my way through. Okay guys, so in my previous video, you saw me working with the volume Genius Weft. So let me just compare the Genius with the volume so that immediately off the bat, you're going to notice the difference. This is your volume Genius Weft from Covey, and then this is your Genius Weft from Covey. So immediately you can see that this is a lot more lightweight and the spine is a lot thinner, because this is essentially like 3 or 4 of these stacked together and pre-made into a volume Genius. The reason that you might reach for a Genius Weft as opposed to a volume Genius is because you want to have more control of how many layers that you're adding per row. Another thing that I personally prefer about the Genius is that I can stack and layer multiple different colors, so it gives me a little bit more freedom when it comes to color matching. Your Genius Wefts are going to be ideal for pretty much any client, whether they have fine, medium or thick hair. And the reason I say that is because of that customizability factor of stacking 1, 2, 3 or even 4 of these on a row. So I've already gone ahead and done my beaded foundation. I don't want to bore you with that because pretty much all of my Weft videos I'm breaking down the foundation. So if you need a little refresher on that, or if you're new here, make sure to check out my other Weft videos because I do break down the beaded foundation. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same all the way around. So what I'm going to do today is I am going to stack 2 of my Genius Wefts on top of my foundation as if they had finer hair. That's exactly who I would install that on. And if they had thicker hair, I might do 3, and then really thick hair 4. So for the video, I'm going to do 2. And like I said at the start, I'm not doing a hidden row. I'm just doing that standard row. So let's go ahead and stack these 2 pieces. I've already pre-measured this one out and cut it to the size. And then for my next one, you'll see me cut that to the size of the foundation. My top tip when we are adhering this weft onto the foundation before we sew it down is to use as many clips as you like. I always get questions, why are you using so many clips? And honestly, for me, I just like to have a lot of control and keep my weft exactly where I want it. And then as I go, if the clips get in the way, I just remove them. But for now, it just gives me peace of mind that I know all those little layers of weft are right where I want them to be. I actually love these gold clips. They're from Amazon. I've got them linked in my storefront. You can buy a huge bag of them, and I think they're about $10 or less. So now I'm going to take my other piece and I'm just going to, again, clip that down, line it all up, and then if there's any excess, I'll just trim it off. You can see with my clips as well, I'm just clipping it down through the pocket. So it's going down through the pocket. That's how you keep it where you want it. My mannequin has just dropped down. I definitely need to invest in another tripod. I've had this one for years. Actually, ever since I started teaching, I think I've had this tripod. I'm just going to put another clip here, and I'm going to use my little cutters just to trim off the excess weft. Threads. What's my favorite thread? My favorite thread is always going to be a nylon thread. The reason that I choose nylon thread is because it is stronger, it doesn't absorb moisture the same way that cotton thread does, and it doesn't bubble up. Nylon thread is going to be my thread of choice, and the reason for that is I feel like it's longer lasting as in durability. It doesn't snap, it doesn't break, it doesn't absorb moisture the same way that cotton thread does, and it doesn't go fluffy and bubble up. I also find that it is really, really thin as well in comparison to that cotton thread. So I always go for nylon. Okay, I'm trying to decide if I want to show you guys a single thread or if I want to show you a double thread.
I think do a single thread.
Okay, husband made the decision, single thread. Let's do a single. If you want to see how to do a double thread, watch the volume Genius Weft video, and your stitching, all of that will be exactly the same. So to make it a little bit different, let's do single thread. So I'm going to take one wingspan of threads, cut off the excess, and I'm using my favorite needle. I talked about in my last video, they're the Hair Made Easy needles, the gold needles. They're honestly amazing. I love them. You can use my code SamHines10, and anything that you order from Hair Made Easy, you'll automatically get a 10% discount if you use my code. Same with L Pro. I love their beads. And again, SamHines10 to get the L Pro discount. So all I'm doing is just knotting a little knot around the top of that needle just to secure my thread onto it. So to adhere that thread, you're going to have to anchor it a little bit different. So how I like to anchor it is through the first bead. So let me just remove these clips out the way so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to take my bead, and with my pliers, I'm going to open up that bead. And I'm just going to thread that needle through that first bead so that I can secure my thread onto the foundation. You've seen me do this time and time again. Nothing different here, because it just works. And if something works, I'm going to do it over and over. So now that that's thread through, I'm just going to clamp that down to secure and make sure that thread is nice and tight. Now I'm just going to put my wefts back into place, because then I can start anchoring everything onto the foundation. Okay, so for my first stitch, I'm going to go down through that first pocket. So carrying my thread over, and then I'm going to drop my needle down through that first pocket under those 2 layers of weft, and then I'm just going to tie a knot 1-2 times around that needle and then pull that up and through. And then I'm just going to do that one more time. Again, down through that first pocket, under those 2 layers of weft, and then 1, 2. I'm just going to make sure that this isn't tangled as well, because that can really trip you up if that thread is all tangled. And then again, just pulling that up to secure. So you can see here, my weft is a little bit longer, which is fine. So what I'll do is at the end, I'll just trim off those excess wefts that stick out a little bit more. Otherwise, if you don't, that's really going to annoy that client through the duration of the wear. So now let's go into my blanket stitches. I'm going to carry our thread across, and we're going to go down through that second pocket underneath the 2 layers of weft, and then just pulling that up and through. So stitching is something that cracks me up in the comments sometimes, because I can't tell you guys the amount of times someone has commented, "Oh my gosh, that looks so painful. How can you pierce through the scalp?" We're never piercing through the client's scalp. If I was piercing through someone's scalp, I'd be a surgeon, right? So we're never going through the scalp. We're only going through the pockets of hair. So essentially what those beads are doing is just acting like a bungee so that we go down through the pockets of hair that have been mapped out by those beads. We're never piercing through any sort of scalp or cutting through flesh or anything like that, because then that is just not going to be comfortable. Weft installs should not be painful. If they are painful, chances are it's because something is too tight. And usually that's got to do with the beads being too tight. So as you work through the foundation, or even as you're sewing, ask your client, how's it feeling? Do you need to adjust anything? And then you can do that as you go. You never want to come towards the end of an install and then your client is like, actually, it really hurts. You want to make sure that as you go, you're always asking them how it feels. You want it to be comfortable from the get-go. Students, especially at class, ask me about like your stitches and where they should lay. Do they go through the bead? So I actually never pierce through the bead or go through any sort of bead. The only time that you see me do that is at those anchoring points or when I finish. But as I go through and do my blanket stitches, I actually am never going through the bead. I'm just going next to it through the pocket of hair. It's sometimes hard to describe without seeing it. If you've never installed a weft before, you might not understand what I mean. So what I did is I actually made a video and it's called skeleton stitches. So with the skeleton stitches, you're able to see where those stitches live within the install without having the weft to block the view. Another top tip I want to share with you is your thumb placement. It is so important. So with your thumb, you're actually able to feel for the bead, so then you know where you want that stitch to lie, and you're also supporting that needle so it doesn't drop down too far and create a split in the weft. I always like to have my stitches lie as high and tight and close to the spine of the weft as possible. Blanket stitches are the fundamental to every single weft install, and the way I do my blanket stitches is pretty much the same throughout all of my weft videos. I'm always using both hands simultaneously. I'm never dropping either of my hand. I'm using this hand to guide the needle through and to pull it, and then I'm using this hand to support this part of the thread so it doesn't tangle, and then I'm controlling now where it lives in relation to the spine of the weft. Both hands are going to flow and work in uniform, and that's honestly how you just keep everything flowing and looking clean and living exactly where you want it to live within the install. One thing that I want to touch on is pricing. I did speak about this in my last video. Pricing for your Genius Weft is going to vary. So for example, if I'm doing an install like this, where it's just a standard row, I'm not doing a hidden row, I actually charge a little bit less than if it was a hidden row install. So for example, if it's a new install for a hidden row, per row, just for the install, not including the hair, I'm charging $300. However, for a standard row, I'm only charging $150. And that's because it's less work that goes into it, because you're not having to do any work to hide the bead. One of the reasons why I absolutely love the single thread is because just look how that stitch looks. It looks so clean. It looks so tiny, so minute. I honestly love it. Obviously, I'm using pink thread so that you can see the stitches, so it's not as invisible as it should be. But could you imagine if this thread matched the root color of the client? It is literally just going to melt in. You're not even going to be able to see those stitches. I just did a little story over on my Instagram, and it's something that I was just thinking about as we were working through this video. And something that I get asked is, how do I get good at weft? And the answer is practice. Honestly, that's the only way you're going to get good at anything, is if you just keep practicing. And my top tip is just to have that mannequin head and tripod ready to go at any moment. So if you ever have just, a free hour in your day, you can whip out that mannequin head and your thread and your needle and your hair, and you can just go ahead and practice installing. That's how you're going to really get good. And then once you feel confident, take models, start doing the installs on friends, family, clients that you can trust and will give you feedback. That way you're just going to get confident, and don't worry about time, because the install's always going to take you longer to start. But then as you go, you're just going to get quicker and quicker and quicker. All right, we are at the end. So let's do that finishing blanket stitch. And again, I'm doing it a little bit different. And the way that I'm doing it is I'm dropping my needle down through that last pocket underneath the weft. And then I'm going to wrap my thread around my needle 2 times like that, exactly how I started. And I'm just going to guide that knot through to sit on top of the weft. And then again, I'm just going to do that one more time to make sure these little corners here are really locked in. Making sure I'm guiding that through. I don't have any tangles in my thread, pulling it up to secure. Then I'm going to go back on myself, down through that second to last pocket, doing a closed blanket stitch now. And then I'm going to do another one here, just under the wefts themselves. And I'm going to continue this until I get to that 3rd bead. One more blanket stitch, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, pull that through to secure. And then I'm going to do that one more time just under those 2 layers of the weft. I'm not going through any beads or any pockets here, because I'll show you what I'm going to do next. 1, 2, 3. Guiding that through, making sure I don't have any tangles. And then I'm going to drop my needle down behind those 2 wefts, pull it down to hide that knot. Let's take those clips away. And then I'm going to flip this up, and I'll show you my top tip for how to finish it without that thread unraveling. I'm going to take my comb. I'm just going to open up this part of the weft now so I can see where that thread is laying, and I'll pin this out the way. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unclamp this bead. Let's unclamp. And I'm going to take that bit of thread with the needle, and I'm just going to go down through that bead. So remember how we started? Literally finish in the same way. And down again. Took out my needle, and I'm just going to clamp that bead back shut. Make sure that thread's nice and tight. And I'm just going to trim off the excess, leaving a little bit there just in case anything slides or changes during wear. And then just flip that back down. And I can go ahead and just remove those gold clips. And remember, I had those little pieces there that were a little bit longer than the foundation. Now I'm just going to clip those off. Perfect. The final check. Let's just flip this up. Make sure I don't have any little crosshairs within there. And I do this on all of my clients at the end, just to make sure that everything's looking nice and clean under. Look at that. So that is going to be your standard row of Genius Weft, non-hidden. So you can see the beads are exposed, but it still looks so beautiful and so nice and clean. Look at those stitches. I do love the single thread for that reason, because the stitches just look so pretty and aesthetically pleasing. I really wanted to remake this video because the first one brought in so many great questions. So I wanted this version to feel a little bit more detailed, more helpful, and more complete for anyone trying to improve their weft work. So remember, there's so many things within that Genius Weft install to focus on. And one of the most important things is always going to be that beaded foundation, and then also your stitch work, and making sure that those stitches are really nice and clean, and that you're just going through, guiding the needle through, and using your hands to support and guide you. If you like this video, do not forget to like and subscribe, and leave me a comment down below what part of an install you want me to break down next. And if you'd like a deeper video, maybe on bead sectioning or stitching or cutting, blending, maintenance, whatever it is. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at xsamhair, and at TikTok I am at extensionist LA. I share a lot more videos on there, some quick bits of educational content and behind the scenes work. I'm also going to leave my Amazon storefront down in the description, and don't forget that discount code that I shared with you guys. It's SamHines10, and that's going to work on your Hair Made Easy and your L Pro orders. Hair I'm using, as always, it's Covey hair, and thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.